Since we've taken over the farm, we're having to do a lot of capital facility construction and repair. The farm was 20 years old when we bought it. A lot of the buildings were aging and needed new roofing. We needed new buildings. So Don has an off-farm job as a firefighter, which actually allows him to farm full-time and work off the farm full-time. It's very handy. But we're using a lot of that income to invest in the farm right now because we know that we can. We have that luxury. The infrastructure here is really simple. We have open shed barns. We have water lines that are not frost-free. They're above-ground water lines for watering the stock. We do have high-tensile perimeter fence for the sheep, but we're also grazing in areas around the neighborhood without any perimeter fence, and we're using solar chargers. Even though we have the perimeter fence, we primarily fence our animals in electric netting or the horses in electric polywire. So very, very rudimentary infrastructure. But that's also a really nice thing about sheep, is that the capital facilities to maintain sheep, even if you're milking them, are so much smaller and less intensive than you'd need if you're milking cows. The milking parlor for a cow has to be much bigger and fancier and more well-built than what you need for sheep just because of the size of the animals. When we came here, the farm was run on one well, a 180-foot well. It now continues to run on one 180-foot deep well. It's just a really good well. It's fairly productive, but it runs 2 households and all our stock watering in the dairy. But the sheep water needs are low, even in the dairy. A cow dairy needs a lot more water. We didn't look at the water situation critically, and we're just lucky that it worked out really well. We've never drawn this well dry, even in a really bad drought year. We water the stock in the summer out on pasture using that above ground water line. We have small water troughs with floats in them that move easily around the pasture. That's how we water. The 40 acres that are adjacent to us that we lease, we pay $1,000 a year for that to our great neighbor. And there's a water line that goes along that fence row. So we use our water line to water in that field. Sometimes we have to run long hose reels because it's a large field. There's some fields across the street that we're starting to graze, and those have no fencing or water on them. And what we do is we'll use our electric netting or polywire and a solar charger over there. And we have a large 1,000-gallon water barrel on wheels that we never fill up all the way, but we can pull that with horses or even my little Toyota pickup truck, and that's how we water animals over there. In the winter, usually about the first week of December, when there's no more grass to be had out here, the animals move into the barnyard, and they're watered in the barnyard in a water trough with a tank de-icer. So we drain the water line in the winter. We don't use it year-round. And there's snow cover. They're actually eating hay on snow-covered ground, and they actually eat a fair amount of snow for their water needs. The fencing we have on the home farm, a lot of it is 5-strand, high-tensile fence that we run an electric charger on, so it's hot. Some of the interior fences on the home farm are, we call it medium tensile. It's this stuff called maxi shock wire. I don't recommend it. Although the fences are very easy to install with that, and you can actually step down the wires so you can cross fields easily when the fence is on. There's a lot of repair. It's not very stout fence, and we're planning to replace it. The field next door that we lease, that we installed fencing on, is a 4-strand hot perimeter fence, high tensile, and that costs us about $400. A lot of the fence posts were ones that we harvested here. With insulators. We also used UV-resistant fiberglass posts. Very, very effective fence. We've been really, really happy with it. and it was easy to install. The horses graze in hot poly wire that's held on a reel, and there's pigtail posts that you tread in with your foot and then just thread the poly wire through. And it works great for the horses, keeps the horses in. It's very easy to set up, and so we can follow the sheep very easily. So we have the perimeter fences, but we also use electric nets for grazing the sheep, and that's what the sheep are in 24/7 when they're out on pasture. We use Electronet from Premier, but there's other brands, and we just love these things. They've really revolutionized grazing, I think. When we're grazing home here, we can clip them right onto our high tensile wire, and that's how they carry the shock around. We use 164-foot nets. That just is what works for us, and we make squares or rectangles with them. The electronets are really interesting too. I think they discourage predation on the sheep. We have never had a predation problem here, and our fences aren't necessarily terribly hot all the time. And I think there is something about the electronet that's discouraging. Now, if an animal is really motivated, it's going to get in, no question. But I think it is discouraging. The other thing with our flock is that we're out in the pastures at least 4 times a day. We're around those animals constantly. Our scent is on the pastures. I think that's discouraging. We don't use livestock guard dogs. We use herding dogs, of course, to move the flock, and so their scent is around the pasture, but no guard animals at all. We could just be lucky. We don't really have a predation problem here. And we do have coyotes all around us.